Under Trump, right, the stats show that take-home pay was higher for the middle class and the lower class. Inflation was down. They weren't paying as much on taxes.
Oh, hooray! Remember that fucking pandemic we had?
Like Nordic countries that were like, oh, let's tax the hell out of our rich people, right? And then we have to revert all of that because we made a terrible choice. We were able to have a party for 50 years until we realized we ran through all the money that capitalism got us.
They just raise more in taxes and so can spend more on like social welfare programs. And they get that money through, yes, sometimes progressive taxes, but also just by taxing the middle class, just by having payroll taxes. Nothing complicated. They're doing pretty well. They're not all super distressed because they're burning through the money they made while they had capitalism or whatever. Like, Obama did not do some fucking huge stimulus thing. Most of this shit was like buying toxic assets from banks, most of which, all of which they fucking repaid by now.
Effective tax rate does not create more wealth.
Yes.
More taxes
Well, I don't know what you mean by wealth.
I don't think this guy even here would reject some level of taxation. It's probably necessary just so we can fund a fucking judicial system that makes sure that property owners don't get fucked, right? Like, if you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing. It really helps with the algorithm. And make sure to check out the Discord and other social links in the description.
My claim is the GOP will destroy Social Security and healthcare.
Oh boy. When was this filmed? I don't know if this was filmed before the what's it called, the like budget blueprint was passed.
So what if Social Security should go away? That's my question to you.
Because Social Security keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. And not only does it keep our elderly out of poverty, it's essentially a social insurance program that protects you if at the end of your life you don't have enough money to survive.
For right now, do you know that it's also the albatross around our generation's neck?
No, it isn't.
Okay, so
let me just explain this.
Well,
it's like the 12% payroll tax is fucking killing us. It's the albatross around our neck. They're strangling us with a fucking 12% marginal payroll tax. Like, what even? I don't remember. I think 12% is 12% as high as it gets. I don't know. When other, like in Sweden, they have like 30% payroll taxes. Social Security payroll tax limit 2025. I think it's like oh, well, hold on, that's the cap or whatever. Where's the payroll tax top? Oh, all right. 6.2, but isn't it, there's also 6% on employers, right? Self-employed pay 12.4%.
We're going to go back to lecturing about Social Security.
They're strangling us.
Social Security.
Also, if your parents weren't on Social Security, who would be taking care of them? It'd be fucking you. It'd be you. What do you mean, brother? It'd be you. You'd have to pay it anyway because you'd have to pay for your fucking pet. Like,
is one of the top 3 funded.
Social Security is almost the biggest thing that our government does.
Exactly, and we are more than $30 trillion in debt.
Well, first of all, Social Security cannot contribute legally to the deficit.
$30 trillion in debt.
Count it in the federal deficit
That's
every year.
correct,
We have
because
30
it's
years worth of
self-funded.
because it's a payroll, because it's financed by payroll tax, and it fucking buys our own debt. Okay, like it actually, like, if we're gonna go in debt, would you rather that debt be owned by the fucking Social Security Trust Fund or that debt be owned by China? Like, if anything, you could say like where it's not even, it's actually it's reducing the risk of having this much debt because we fucking owe it to ourselves. Like,
Social Security started in 1936. You have more workers than retirees because people haven't entered into retirement. By 1970, it was at 3.5 to 1. Now it's at 2.5 to 1. But productivity has increased during that time, so the amount of money paid into Social Security has been up there. The reason why we are running out of money just for the trust fund, not for Social Security, like I say, if we do nothing with Social Security now, it is statutorily unable to contribute to the debt. The math is right there. The reason why the trust fund is running out is because wealth inequality has hoarded so much money above the cap.
You don't think it's because the government does a terrible job managing their money? They have a huge spending problem, and they go, look at all this money we have for Social Security. That's
how Social Security is managed ineffectively? We're wasting a ton of Social Security. Does this guy think did he fall for the fucking Doge? We're paying it all to dead people
Or
thing?
60 years from now that we're just going to spend on something right now.
40 years ago, they predicted this. This is an actuarial table. Accountants sit there and look at it. This is a very easy math problem.
Accountants in the government are always right? That's totally the thing that you're
True.
saying. If they're always correct about money, right? That's why we have a $40
They're
trillion
lying.
debt problem.
The problem
Yes,
is
I have heard the account Ben Bernanke saying print more money. This is the big issue we're facing. Yes, true.
$40 trillion debt problem. You have tax
It's the spending problem. I totally agree with you, which I would argue is part of why Social Security's gone in the hole already.
That's simply not true.
Oh, okay. So we're out of money from the Social Security bucket.
No. Statutorily, by that I mean by law, Social Security pays for itself. If we do nothing, the 6.2% that your employer and your employee pays into it will pay out 78% of benefits starting in 2033.
And why is it going down? If everything's so much better, why is it only 78%?
If we raise the cap, there's a cap right now at 100. Your employer and your employee pays into it will pay out 78% of benefits starting in 2033.
And why is it going down? If everything's so much better, why is it only 78%?
If everything's going better, why is it? I don't know what he's. I mean, Sam Seder just mentioned this. We have a cap, and because income inequality. Because A, the population is aging, and B, income inequality is increased, but there's still a cap on Social Security. Like, that's why the fund's insolvent. And also, Social Security can only invest in fucking T-bills, right? So we should probably let them invest in other things as well. I think that's what the there was some like Social Security Solvency report that came out not that long ago, and they're like, hey, by the way, if we just did like 3 relatively simple things, like let Social Security invest in like low risk assets like the S&P 500 or whatever, get rid of the cap. And also maybe just increase the payroll tax. We'll be chill.
Is the cap. There's a cap right now at $176,000. So for instance, if you make $100,000...
Maybe one day I'll go on my... You guys will know that I'm truly evil when I start arguing for privatizing Social Security. That's how you know I've truly... When we're reading the Cato Institute privatize Social Security. That's how you know I'm truly evil. I've truly fallen.
$6,200 into that.
A year,
A year. But if you make $4 million, do you know how much money you pay into Social Security? $6,200.
And so why should wealthy people hang on? Why should wealthy people pay a higher percentage?
No, they should pay the same percentage. 6.2 on 4.
First of all, there's an easy answer for why they should pay a higher percentage. Because of diminishing marginal utility, like the marginal value of $1 just gets less as you accumulate it more, right? Like $1 million to Jeff Bezos means that like infinitely less than $1 million to any like random homeless person on the street, right? Or even just $1,000 literally probably means nothing to Jeff Bezos, but it would mean quite a bit to like an average working family. It's called marginal utility, diminishing marginal utility. Crazy. But also, yeah, he's saying they should pay the same percent. It's a payroll tax. You pay a certain percentage of your payroll. Logical end of GDP first libertarianism. It's privatizing Social Security. But, I mean, there are, like, the people... Sorry, not everyone. There are evil people out there. Plenty evil libertarians out there. Don't worry. Those people exist and they're evil, okay? There are also just, like, a lot of people who want to privatize Social Security too just think it would be better for seniors if we privatize Social Security. Like, I'm sure there are models of Social Security privatization that, like, I would not have an issue with. Like, other countries have, you know, like, semi-private, like, you know, pension funds that seem to do just fine. There's probably a way that we could do it here. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Fuck, I was gonna say something about privatizing Social Security. I was gonna say one more thing about it, but I forgot. Not a GDP first libertarian, but GDP first libertarian. Paste. I just want free shit. Nonfon. I also like to not pay taxes. Well, also getting free shit, make it happen. I don't know. Talk to Copeland. Okay, he has a nice philosophy for you. He has a nice economic philosophy for you there. I was gonna say, if we do privatize Social Security, though, like we should probably still just mandate that people save a certain amount, because people just don't seem to save for retirement enough on their own. So, like, even if we privatize it to some extent. We should probably just mandate. We should probably say, hey, fuck you. You got to contribute some of your payroll to this private fund anyway.
$400,000, 6.2 on $1 million.
And why should they pay even more money at all?
Because
they make more money? Again, you fundamentally have this idea.
Yes. What? They make more money? Yeah, they should probably pay more. That seems fair based on. Again, he's arguing for a flat tax right now too, which is crazy. It's the same percentage. He's just saying everyone should pay their same percentage. Like what?
So because you have an idea that because somebody makes more money, that's fundamentally wrong, right?
No, I don't think it's fundamentally wrong.
Ow, no, that's not what that entails. What do you mean? It's just it just means that it's probably there's a program presumably that Sam Seder wants to fund, Social Security, and there are ways to fund it that are good and ways to fund it that are bad. Okay, Sam reasonably thinks one of the more efficient and more fair ways to fund it is via a payroll tax. Okay, and everyone should pay, and that should probably be. I mean, if not progressive, then at least a flat tax. If not progressive, then at least not fucking regressive, right? No, it doesn't mean that you think making money is wrong. Dog.
They should pay more taxes into it. Now, I do think as a society, we should not allow billionaires. So for instance,
pay more taxes generally.
He fumbled it.
Hang on, does a billionaire get more money from Social Security if they went to go take it than I would?
No,
of course not. So why should they pay more?
I'll tell you what. Because it is a social insurance program that keeps you from being in poverty when you're a senior. And the reason why I think billionaires should pay more taxes than other people, even a higher percentage, is because it works better for society. The greatest expansion we've had in this country in terms of economics and the least amount of wealth disparity was in the 40s and 50s and 60s in this country. Do you know what the top marginal rate was?
It was high.
Do you know what it was?
I don't know the exact number, but
if you made
by the way, this is misleading. By the way, these people want to come on a fight, whatever, but basically no one paid those fucking rates. The 91% top marginal rate in fucking 1970 or whatever was there's I think it was 446 taxpayers pay that rate.
over $470,000 in 1955, every dollar you would make above that was taxed at 90%.
So I have a question.
90 cents on every dollar was taxed above 470. So if we had
which is wild, by the way. But
it's also the greatest expansion we had of the economy.
Yeah, you can expand for a time, and then you see places. You see Nordic countries that were let's tax the hell out of our rich people, right? And then they go, whoops, we messed up. We can't actually live off of our terrible. We basically are able to live off our economic boom that they had between the 40s and the 90s, and then we have to revert all of that because we made a terrible choice. We were able to have a party for 50 years until we realized we ran through all the money that capitalism got us. So let me ask.
True. That's just not what happened. I mean, the point that you can make there is that it's not most of the Nordic countries don't just tax the rich an insane amount, a ton. They tax the rich, but they also tax middle class people a lot. It's not that complicated. They just raise more in taxes. Thank you. So it's a fucking bot. They just raise more in taxes and so can spend more on social welfare programs, and they get that money through, yes, sometimes progressive taxes, but also just by taxing the middle class, just by having payroll taxes, just by having income tax that is higher than the US. It's nothing complicated. They're doing pretty well. They're not all super distressed because they're burning through the money they made while they had capitalism or whatever. Norway has their fucking sovereign wealth fund, and that seems to be going pretty well. That's still growing. That line is still going up quite a bit, from my understanding. It's the largest one in the world, right?
Ask you real quick. So the average person, right? right now they fundamentally look at Social Security, young people like me, and they go, I'm going to have that money sitting waiting for me when I retire. Since your opinion is whatever works best for the average person,
Ponzi scheme, Ponzi scheme, Ponzi scheme.
Something that I would agree with, which is getting people that are 19, 20 years old into funding their own retirement rather than relying on other people to fund it for them.
Like a 401k.
Sure, well, not just a 401k, but for IRAs, any other type of retirement. Would you agree? Would we agree with that?
Social Security was set up as part of a three-legged stool where back in the day when I was a kid, we had defined benefit pensions where you'd know how much money you would get out.
Yeah, there's this graph. The why does Grammarly? This is fucking not. How do I get it to not? I need to work on Notion sometimes, but I need it to not work in specific Notion pages because I don't give a fuck if I'm missing a comma in some of these. I think it was literally 446 people paid, like the top tax bracket in this. And like income tax as a percentage of government revenue has been basically, or percentage GDP has been basically flat. Like it's been like 18% or this is under that even, 11% or whatever for like a while. Even with those super high marginal rates. Also, Tesco Johnson, I don't know if you know, like, you were asking what I call my fans. Because, of course, I am a Destiny clone. Of course, obviously. I mean, I did lean into it with this fucking website, nonfon.gg. His fans are DGGers. Translating that to my name, which starts with an N. NGGer. It's not the other word, okay? It's N. First of all, the NGG is capitalized, and the ER is not capitalized. So you have to stylize it to make it clear, okay? And also, there's no I, all right? Anyway, nonfon.gg, guys. I need to redesign the website at some point. This fucking sucks. This is just what came like free with the domain that I bought. It just came with like free like web hosting or whatever, but stuff that personally, I'm fine with calling you guys non-fawners or non-fans. I say non-fawner sometimes. Non-fawn nation, non-fawners, non-fawnies. Non-fans work, I think. But
that all shifted in the 80s to define contribution, where you know how much you put in. The 401k started during that Reagan era. It has been a disaster because the fact of the matter, for better or for worse, people just don't save in the way that you're talking about.
Why?
It would be nice if because things are.
This is true. This is true. It's correct. People just don't. They just don't do it. They're just too fucking stupid. Society just seems to work better if we just tell people, "Fuck you." I say this. I say this as a meme, like, fuck you, you're saving this money anyway. Obviously, I think it's better for those people that we tell them they have to save. Like, I don't think it's actually fuck you. But society just seems to work better when we do that.
Changing the mindset and actually pushing that cultural shift towards, we're not just going to hand you money when you're 65. You have to plan for it right now.
We had a 40-year experiment with the government affecting the cultural mindset, and it failed.
He had a 40-year experiment of every. You know what my parents say? Do you know what grandparents say? They go, well, I'm just waiting for my social security check to come in, rather than I have $800,000 waiting for me because I thought about it when I was 19 and 20 because I didn't have this grab bag of money waiting for me.
People just don't almost know what it does. And also, we do, by the way, it's not like we stop you from doing this. Obviously, like, I mean, the payroll tax you have to pay, and you can't invest that money, but like, literally, everyone right now, okay? Everyone Google Roth IRA, okay? You can put like $6,000 in a year or something. And it's tax-free, and it grows exponentially over time. And you can have a nice fat retirement account, okay? So if you started, let's say you're my age, okay? You're 19. You start, I don't know, $5,000, and you contribute $5,000 annually, okay? You want to retire at 65. Rate of return, I think 7 is like, we'll make it 6, okay? Trump's in office, we'll make it 6. We won't even maximize the contributions. This is gonna be like $1 million. Yeah, you get a nice, fat fucking $1 million when you retire, tax free, baby. Or when I say tax free, I mean it's deductible. You don't pay income. It's deductible from your like present income tax. I don't think this $1 million. It might be actually. I don't think this $1 million is like tax free when you cash out, but it's like deductible when you invest in it. The ability to withdraw your money tax free. Oh no, it is. Yeah, you withdraw tax free in retirement as well. Never mind. It is fucking all tax free. Hell yeah. Roth IRAs fund. No, okay, never mind. I'm lying. Okay, traditional IRAs tax deductible now. Roth IRAs tax free when you cash out. Okay, that's what it is. That's what it is. Everyone, open a fucking Roth IRA. Okay. But people just don't do that. even though like 401ks are deductible now, obviously, like you can do this, and we even have incentives to do so.
You're assuming that young people.
I try and tell my kids.
So we agree. We should get rid of Social Security and phase it out. Well, no. So we should phase out. How would you listen to this idea? You phase out Social Security to where people who have 5 years left before they retire get 100% of the benefits, and then people like me who have 40 years until we retire,
Dude,
I'm not going to get it.
Screw you.
I'm going to get screwed either way.
No,
You really think I'm going to get Social Security someday?
I guarantee you, at the very least, you're going to get 78% of your benefits.
That's
if
awesome.
You
I'll get $9,000 a year. That's great.
In calling for our government
I
to
don't think
increase the cap,
that's.
in fact, get rid of the cap, then your grandkids.
I don't think that's there's no way. That's not 78% of the benefits, right? How much is it? That's like. Hold on, I don't know how much Social Security pays out right now, but you would make more than $9,000 a year.
And again, maybe we'll just disagree, but I would much rather result to, hey, 20-year-olds, please save for your own retirement, invest for your own retirement, because the government is bad at dealing with money.
And what happens
don't rely
if they
on
don't?
them.
They're buying treasury bills. What do you mean? First of all, you can just hire just hire professionals to do it. Just hire the same people. Motherfucker, you're bad at managing money, okay? That's why you hire a financial advisor to manage your money for like that's why you like a lot of people are not like picking the individual stocks to invest their fucking retirement savings in. That's why you hire people to do it for you. The government can just do the same thing. What do you mean? Have professionals manage it.
Happens if what?
What happens if those 20-year-olds don't listen to you?
The same thing that happens if a 20-year-old just doesn't go and get a job because I tell them to.
No.
They're going to have a problem, but that's not my fault.
No, I got news for you.
They're gonna be like fucking starving, but that's not my fault. They can just like die out in the street and I'll be chill. That's my ideal society. Everyone who is a retard at 20, which is 90% of people, they just get to fucking die. Let's go. Let's go.
It's not your fault, but there used to be in New York City 30,000 people sleeping
No one
on
in
the
this room was alive before Social Security. We've all lived under this, just like the
and it has
income tax.
been the most successful government program in the history of our government.
Things that are successful don't just start to die out and end up in the
dying out.
It's the grab bag of money, the massive excess that was there in the early years because of the 42 to 1 benefit.
There wasn't a massive excess in 1936.
42 to 1
Dude,
is
that
a
was
massive
because
excess.
There weren't that many people who had entered into the Social Security program.
And the fact that
in 1970 it was 3.5 workers to 1. Now it's 2.5, but productivity has increased it. I've told you why the Social Security Trust Fund is running out. It is because of wealth disparity. Billionaires hiding and hoarding their money above the cutoff line, which is 176,000. That's the cap. If you remove the cap, your grandkids
billionaires aren't keeping $2 billion under their mattress. They're investing it back in.
They're just putting it into some stock market, or they're just looking around.
And what do you think of
crypto,
401k?
I mean, that's obviously not what, when Sam says like hiding and hoarding their money, he's basically referring to the, you have it in a fucking offshores. I mean, you can actually hide it basically in a fucking mattress in a like Swiss bank account or whatever. But there's the whole buy, borrow, die, whatever. But I will defend billionaires until my dying breath because I will be rich someday. This is my philosophy as a liberal.
An IRA relies upon. It relies on the stock market and things like that.
Yeah, a 401k relies on the stock market, and I knew people who were retiring in 2008 when the stock market tanked, and they got screwed.
Well, that's a whole other problem.
problem.
I would argue that's
That is
largely
the
driven by the
problem.
government being, once again, terrible with policy and creating.
True. Bro has not read Scott Sumner. Where's that? I need that dolphin meme. how it feels to tell people to read Scott Sumner without having actually fucking read Scott Sumner.
The problem.
Bad economic
Social
hazards.
Security is there regardless of what happens with the
Roger shouldn't learn how to launder money. Go to any of the hundreds of crypto streamers. True. Who is Scott Sumner? He's a market monetarist, libertarian dude. He's a big NGDP targeting guy, and he wrote the Money Illusion, and he's that's a book about like the Great Recession. He's like he has a, I don't want to call it a heterodox view, but a contrarian view of 2008 that basically it was caused by the reason it got, I think technically he says like obviously the subprime mortgage bubble would have burst at some point, but NGDP contracted before that actually, and that was probably the onsetting thing for the whole like super bad financial crisis or whatever. But it's like Fed policy was overly contractionary in the lead up to 2008 financial crisis, and they didn't do enough to stabilize NGDP growth in the aftermath. And yeah, 2008 was caused by tight monetary. Yeah.
Micah?
Hey, Micah.
Yeah,
Sam, nice to meet you.
There's an idea that you have that basically government can kind of fix all these problems, right? If you didn't save for retirement, well then the government can just come in, swoop in, and save you from
Well, not
that.
swoop in. It starts on literally the day you get your Social Security.
Sure. It swoops in once you retire, right? Once you can.
Well, you pay
once you
into
can.
it.
Right, exactly. And so you believe this idea basically that government is an effective organization, which it does time and time again.
You don't have to believe that like on the whole government is effective to just say Social Security is a net benefit. It's not like that. It's not that, like, I mean obviously Sam probably thinks the government is more efficient overall than like these conservative people do, but you can have a presumption in favor of the government being inefficient and like private enterprise, free markets being better, but like still be like, hey, the government might just be better at doing some things, or like even if the government is inefficient, it may be the only organization that can do certain things. God.
If you look at history, that's proven to not be true.
How Bob Marley? You know what I'm going to tell you? I'm going to tell you to read Scott Sumner. Basically, I think Scott Sumner's argument, NGDP, sorry, yeah, I think he says like NGDP was contracting and the Fed, as soon as NGDP started contracting in fucking June 2007, the Fed should have reacted, and they didn't do that because other indicators weren't as bad, and basically that contraction in NGDP eventually led to the financial crisis and blah 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 blah. But I watched one lecture he gave. I don't even know if I ever fucking finished it. I have his book downloaded. We'll read it one day.
Hidden at retirement, you don't know. This is an insurance program. That's it. It's an insurance program, and it basically says you're insured against eating cat food when you're 65, and it works. It works.
No, it doesn't. You should have, well, one, you should have your own personal.
How doesn't it work?
How doesn't it work?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've already discussed the details of how it is just completely failing as a program. Like,
Well, how is it failing?
because
How?
I'm not gonna receive any
What?
Social
No, I've already told you right.
There's no, people don't actually. Okay, sometimes like the more nuanced conservatives, by the way, well, so what is the NGDP that is being targeted? Nominal GDP. He says he wants like four. I think he says for the U.S. it could maybe be 5%, but like the Fed should target 4% NGDP growth, and it should just expand NGDP anytime it's like under trend, basically. And I think that there's like level targeting as well. Like, you know, if we fall behind one year, we probably want to make up for that the next year. And it might be looked at asymmetrically. So like if NGDP is on target growth, but inflation is high, well, maybe you start being worried about inflation. But like if NGDP is not at the target level, then you probably don't want to worry about inflation too much. You just want to make NGDP the target rate or whatever. Yeah.
no, I'm not going to rehash out that debate.
Go for and against free
issue-
markets because they
You've
don't
been told
exist.
this, and you know
Base.
why you've been told
That's
this?
the real
Because they want to
position.
rate it to give tax cuts to rich people. That's why.
So are you saying there are the Trump tax cuts were only for rich people? You're saying
No,
people,
I'm not saying they're only for rich people.
Oh, okay, then how could
rich
they
people
only
benefited more from it than low-income people? And I would
And what do you mean benefited more from that? Because we already went over the percentage
they
numbers,
don't
and we
need
know
the
that's
money.
not true.
They don't need the money as much, and they don't need it.
When do they go at a percentage? The 2017 tax cuts, I think, were most of the long-term tax cuts for the rich were kind of masked by temporary tax deductions for middle-class people, which obviously made it I shouldn't say made it seem like it, because it did happen. Most people, most middle-class people, received a modest tax cut or whatever. That was slightly bigger than a lot of what rich people received. But a lot of that was the child tax credit, which Trump doubled. But I think that was a temporary thing. That expires.
What are you talking about? These rich people are the people that are investing in smaller businesses. These are the people that are giving other people jobs to allow them to provide for their family.
Okay,
So
pause.
What's up? Good to be back.
Nice to see you.
Okay, yeah, nice to see you too. I want to zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
So obviously you're pinpointing on Social Security, and there's a reason for that.
And healthcare too.
Oh, okay. But Social Security is the program that you're very concerned about, and that. or-
Medicare. I'd love a Medicare for all program, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the reason you're focusing in on Social Security precisely is because Social Security is the most successful in a shadow of social welfare programs and government spending. That it's like the Democrats.
It's also the biggest bucket
Sure,
of money.
it is the biggest
It's
bucket, but the Democrats have these social programs and this deficit spending, and it's just never ends. It's never enough money. So you're focusing on Social
Real.
Security because it is the one successful child, but you're ignoring all the social welfare state that we become.
Social
70%
Security and
well,
Medicare and
The
Medicaid.
social welfare state that the U.S. has become, brother. The fledgling social democracy.
They make up
majority.
over a
Right, so
third
70% of our
budget.
70% of our federal spending is mandatory. And that, you're right, it's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on debt. 8% of we're paying for that. So the Democrats run on this. Essentially, they want a welfare state. So yes, Social Security might help a lot of people, but it's we're closer to a welfare state than we've ever been.
We're closer to a welfare state than we've ever been. So true. I mean, that might actually be, that's a weird way to phrase it. It might actually be true, but it's kind of weird that he's saying that now and before he was saying fucking we're such a big social welfare state. I have read State and Revolution, but I know you're talking to JC, but I have read State and Revolution before. Pascal. It was a while ago at this point, but I have read it.
38% of the GDP in the U.S. is government spending. That's the highest since World War II. So us conservatives, we're trying to tell you,
It's 20. It depends if you're including state governments or not. I think overall, it is 33% or something. But I think, they have a fact check. But the federal government is 26%. And again, I just found out that it shouldn't be that crazy to me because I know transfer payments is a fuck ton of what the U.S. does, but federal government spending as a percentage of GDP, excluding transfer payments, is 6%. That was wild to me. Have you read the Communist Manifesto? I have. According to Treasury Department, government spending is equal to 23% of GDP. This is federal government spending, but yeah. In World War II, peaked at 40%. The most recent peak was 31%. And 23% is federal government. It's 10% higher if you include state governments. But state governments can't really. They can't. I mean, state governments can go into debt, but they can't go into debt in the same way that the U.S. government can go into debt.
you guys are fiscal.
They're not the they're the user of currency. They're not the issuer of currency. So
Really,
So are you worried
irresponsible.
about the tax cuts and what that does to the debt and deficit?
The tax cuts increased revenue.
No.
Yes.
I want to tell you about
They did not. It's not true. No, it's not true. He's lying. Again, remember when I showed you that chart earlier today, and I was like, "This is what MAGA people do." They're like, they can't compare to the counterfactual. Okay, they're like, look at the price of washing machines going down, and then when the tariffs caused a one-time increase, but then the downward trend kept going down. So clearly, after the tariff was imposed, the price eventually got lower than before the tariff was imposed. It's like, well, yeah, but you shifted the entire trend line up. You're not comparing to the counterfactual. If you hadn't done the tariff, it'd just be a continued downward trend. They do the same thing with fucking tax cuts. No, revenue increases usually because the tax base increases. We just make more shit. Every GDP just tends to grow every year. Income just tends to grow every year. Well, GDP is income, but you get my point. Somewhere I have, oh yeah, here we go. This analysis, which I haven't read yet. But like, there's plenty of analysis is done. You can see there was, I mean, presumably, like, tax cuts overall, like, I haven't meta-analysis on this, just don't seem to increase growth that much. Like, like corporate tax cuts usually just have a very low impact on growth. They just don't seem to increase growth that much or decrease growth that much. They're just not that big of an effect. So if you cut tax revenue, even if there is some increase of growth, that, you know, that effect is small enough that if you hadn't done a tax cut, you would have just raised more revenue, right? But like this shows you, you know, over 10 years, negative like 30% or whatever, negative 40% due to the lowered corporate tax rate, like in tax revenue. Yeah. DBCFT would fix this.
Kansas.
Okay, tell me about Kansas.
Sam Brown back in 2012 brought in Arthur Laffer. You know the Laffer curve, right? That's the argument that if you cut taxes, you're going to get more revenue. It
And that's exactly what
destroyed
happened. No,
Kansas.
that's exactly what happened
It
to TCJA.
destroyed Kansas. By 2016,
Let's look at
The Laffer curve did not happen in 2017. Kansas enacted tax and spending cuts in 2012. Fiscal position when it has the rate of economic growth and job creation, but Kansas underperformed both the national economy. Yeah. I believe I read Paul Krugman talk about this. I think, yeah, I think it was like the same year Kansas did this, California did the opposite, and they increased taxes, and everyone was like, "Oh, California's gonna California's gonna fucking die. Everyone's gonna leave California. Everyone's gonna," and you know, Kansas ended up in a fucking budget crisis, and California did just fine. They're still, well, they were doing fine until things have gotten worse recently, but they're chill. Ish.
Republican legislature raised taxes again. They destroyed their education
Reality
system.
is against you, my friend.
Look up
The
Kansas.
numbers-
In fact,
the numbers
during
say
the Trump administration, they sent Sam Brown back. They made him the ambassador to
Oh,
faith
you
because they didn't want this
viewers.
guy
If
around
you want
because
to
it
tax
was
the
a
rich,
disaster.
you should vote Republican because they pay more in taxes in under Republican. It was the same
Revenue
as
went
Reagan.
down.
It
Look
was
at
the same as
Kansas.
Trump.
Look at
the
Kansas.
U.S. Look at the
Look
U.S.
at
We can
Kansas.
have the numbers
It
for
was
this.
the perfect
Obama
I don't know
had-
what he's talking about there.
Last year,
It destroyed
federal income revenue
Kansas.
is pales in comparison to Trump's worst year. Do you get what I'm saying? Does more taxes necessarily equate to more revenue?
Yes.
No, that's where you're wrong. So if you look at TCJA, and I'll say the numbers again, the top 1% paid more into the system. GDP grew, wages grew, 3%.
GDP almost always grows, GDP did not grow significantly more because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That's just not true.
Year over year
But
under TCJA. So when you're saying tax the rich, like
But you're
it sounds
saying,
like you're actually a Republican. You just don't know it yet.
You're not.
I don't know. Hold on. I'm missing.
Does more taxes necessarily equate to more revenue?
Yes.
No.
I mean, he should say, like, clearly there is a margin somewhere.
That's where you're wrong. So if you look at TCJA, and I'll say the numbers again, the top 1% paid more into the system. GDP grew, wages.
More in the system compared to what? Compared to the previous year, or compared to I think compared to, did he said like under Biden earlier or something? I don't.
Grew 3% year over year under TCJA. So when you're saying tax the rich, like
But you're
it sounds
saying,
like you're actually a Republican. You just don't know it yet.
You're not. You're confusing causation with
No, I'm not.
correlation
No, I'm
because Obama's economic recovery was way too slow, and I agree with you on that.
Way too slow.
Way too slow.
When you have tons of stimulus, what you're doing is you're creating the Great Depression for the bottom 90%. All the assets in.
First of all, he's talking about fucking. I'm gonna shoot myself. He's talking about fucking QE. That's what he's saying. Oh, asset price inflation from all the stimulus debt. That's not what the fucking Obama did. That's what my goat, Ben Bernanke did. Okay, first of all, that's not Obama. Second of all, the issue, some part of the issue with 2008 being too slow was because Obama didn't really do that much stimulus. I mean, there was that one like fiscal, like one spending bill that like bailed out the banks, and I think even part of that bill was fucking repaid. By the way, like I don't think, okay, this shit was repaid. I don't know about the other. I don't know if this was repaid. Oh wait, hold on. I'm being fucking stupid. This bill created this fund which was repaid. Okay. I am fucking right. I'm just stupid and can't read Wikipedia correctly. Okay, yeah. But, like, this was not a huge... like, Obama did not do some fucking huge stimulus thing. Most of this shit was, like, buying toxic assets from banks, most of which, all of which they fucking repaid by now. Like, it was not, like, a huge, big stimulus thing. He's talking about quantitative easing also as well. Asset price inflation is not real inflation. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. It's just not true. We usually want the prices of assets to remain stable because otherwise the financial sector kind of fucking freaks out and goes bananas. And there is no, I'm quoting Ben Bernanke right now. History has taught us there is no recovery while the financial system is in crisis. Okay. And quantitative easing is not really a bailout. It's just they're different. Okay. I think the first round of quantitative easing was buying a lot of toxic assets from banks. I think the second round of quantitative easing was a way to manipulate long-term interest rates. It wasn't like a bailout. It's just a way to push down the price of long-term interest rates by buying bonds, and that decreases their supply, which makes their price higher, which drives down their yield, and that decreases long-term rates, so you can increase investment. That's just a way to drive down long-term rates, and part of it was also buying toxic assets from banks. But again, that was repaid. The Treasury made a fucking profit off of that. Hold on. Where's the video that... Anyway.
So who does that benefit? Your policies benefit the 1%.
No,
Inflation disproportionately benefits the 1%. It's an immoral tax.
That's not
There's this
really
trend in
true.
modern politics, which is comparing.
The issue with the we don't usually want deflation because wages are sticky. So if you have deflation, like, companies' revenues go down, but the wages can't adjust if their costs don't go down, and that leads to a lot of unemployment, which does not benefit poor people. Believe it or not, having high unemployment is actually the rich tend to be pretty insulated from increased unemployment. The poor usually are not. Inflation is taxation, which is theft. Theft is immoral, therefore inflation is immoral. True. There's actually, it's called a case still here. The MMT people kind of like inflation because it's an unavoidable tax. Rich people can't avoid inflation, right? They can avoid other taxes, but inflation affects their wealth too, right? Like, they can't do anything about the value of their money being less. There are conceivable ways to shift assets around to avoid paying other taxes, but with inflation, you're just fucked. That's anyway.
On the poor. And that's exactly what happens when they
COVID
stimulate.
inflation was not a function of monetary stimulus.
It absolutely was. They increased the money supply by $6 trillion.
No, I
man.
understand they did that. I understand they did that, and they could pull it back on taxes with the wealthy if they wanted to. You're making an argument for higher taxation.
Okay, do you think taxing people makes the country wealthier? Is that what you think?
Does it make the country
do taxes
wealthier?
make us wealthy? Is that government increasing taxes? Are we now more wealthy? Do you think that?
And it's obviously, I don't think that's what Sam is arguing. But I don't know. Inflation was partly supply determined, obviously. Some of it was monetary stimulus. Some of it was fiscal stimulus. I really care. I don't care. I don't know. I don't know how much was what at this point. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to tell you to read Scott Sumner again is what I'm going to do. Probably, the monetary stimulus is probably... Oh, corporate greed. Yeah, sorry. It was like maybe 10% supply, maybe 10% deficit spending, maybe 10% monetary stimulus, and 70% corporate greed.
If you tax and
create wealth is by producing.
If you tax and spend, government stimulus can, yes, increase GDP, of course.
Is GDP wealth?
Is GDP wealth?
If we import 10 million immigrants and our GDP...
GDP is not wealth. GDP measure like income. It doesn't really measure. There's a difference between income and wealth, but truth. It is also, I mentioned this before, but like, guess when taxes were cut on the ground, I wonder. To be fair, Bush had wars too. What was I gonna say? Fuck, I forgot now. Oh, and it's just so funny when people are like, we're gonna have deflation. Donald Trump is gonna make prices go down, and we're gonna pay off the debt, and we're gonna have a balanced budget. It's like, brother, deflation makes it harder to pay off debt. Deflation increases real rates. That's part of the reason why deflation is bad. Typically bad. It's because you make it harder for people and companies to pay back loans. That's why you don't want NGDP to contract, because NGDP represents the nominal income, which can be used to pay back debts denominated nominally. Debts which are, I think debts denominated nominally is, there's got to be a less clunky way to phrase that, but you get what I'm saying. I disagree. We're always told inflation is bad, ergo deflation must be good. True.
GDP goes up, are we not wealthier? If the housing costs more, if CPI goes up because there's more people...
No, I understand. Inflation is under control.
CPI.
And we haven't pulled that money off the table.
Right, but I'm just saying...
Basic economics, Sam. What the hell? You think GDP equals wealth? What?
Inflation is back down because we had a problem.
The welfare
with
state makes us all
logistics.
poorer.
No,
Yes, it does. And you can see it
doesn't.
across history.
Probably not. No. Well, certainly not all, right? There's clearly people who are net benefits from the welfare state. How's Argentina been doing? I actually don't. I don't know. I don't keep track of Argentina, but it seems like Argentina was in a kind of bad situation to begin with, and I don't think Milei has done anything like... I don't think Milei is like making it like super unbearable, horrible or anything. I've seen people suggest poverty has gone up, but the sample seems to think that it hasn't. And like, I don't know. I don't care to look into it that much, but thought he was going after pensions now. He might be. I don't know. Poverty has fallen. It might, again, and I have not looked in Argentina for good enough, but God, people just should watch the Ben Bernanke. If people just watch like the Ben Bernanke interviews, stop them from saying so much stupid stuff. But
people want to come here for economic opportunity. We don't want handouts. We want opportunity. That's why as an immigrant, that's why my family came here. We left the socialist paradise. It's garbage. The people that come here want economic opportunity, and you're stifling that. You're undermining capitalism and the free market.
Don't you know, actually, Economic Freedom Index shows Denmark has more economic freedom than the U.S. or whatever.
Markets with your utopian vision.
There is no free market.
Well, there's not anymore.
No, there's
but
never
now
been
there
a
used to
free
be.
market. No.
That is what makes America the greatest. That's what makes America is the greatest economy in the world because of the free market. Free market capitalism is the most ethical and
America
moral.
had was when we had 90% tax.
That's not true. The numbers are against you.
1940, 1950,
It's kind of true, but not really true. Again, I think like as a percentage of GDP, like the rich paid like basically the same amount of income tax as they do today, even with those higher rates, because like no one was in those fucking top brackets. Like literally, like 500 people are in those top brackets. But we did have really high growth during that period, but that's probably due to not really that wasn't due to taxes on the rich. That was just that was a lot of factors.
1960, the highest
Argentina
top marginal
crypto
tax rate
theft.
was
So what happened in the
90%,
70s?
and we
When
had
Milton Friedman predicted stagflation in the 70s with your social welfare.
We had OPEC.
When
we had
your welfare
oil
rate-
shock.
I don't think the stagflation was caused by the welfare state. That seems to that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before. What the? Oh wait, no, I did actually. I saw a little bit about this. My president.
Drove inflation way up, and that was a function of OPEC. But in the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s, highest top marginal tax rate was 90%.
we had an
We had
industrial
wealth
revolution.
inequality
We had
shrink.
post-World
We
War
had something
II
called the
industrial
Great Compression,
What
and
you're-
more people
we had
enjoyed
post-World War II
more
industrial
people
revolution.
enjoyed
We were
wealth
producing
than
more
any
than every other
time in the
country. No, it's because we were producing more than every other country. That's what creates wealth.
And we were
Production.
doing that with a 90% tax rate on the wealthiest
Which was
individuals.
less when
90%.
Reagan came in and brought it down, the top 1% paid more. Can you believe that?
No.
I don't know what he mean. Paid more, like they might have paid more, but not relative to the counterfactual. They might have paid more in absolute numbers because, like, again, GDP. They probably just grew their wealth in absolute numbers. So, like, they might have paid $1,000 one year, and then there was a tax cut, and paid $1,001 next year because they just increased their wealth during that time. But relative to the counterfactual, where the rates had been decreased, they would have paid more than $1,001 the next year because the tax rate would have been higher. You'd have to compare to the counterfactual. You can't just say like, oh, revenue grew because this is a really good art. The correcting the top 10 tax cuts or whatever. Problem is that starting these economic fake revenues will be large enough to pay for 100% of static revenue loss at tax cuts. The Laffer curve does show that there's a point at which taxes rise so high that revenues begin to fall. Yet the peak of the Laffer curve for income tax typically is estimated between marginal rates of 55 and 73%, well above current rates, while investment revenues likely peak at 30 to 45%. Critics often point to increased tax revenues after tax cut as evidence that the cut paid for itself, but such analysis measures the wrong variable. For a tax cut to pay for itself, tax revenues would have to match the level that would have been raised even without the tax cut. After all, even a stable tax code will produce rising revenues simply due to inflation, population growth, rising real wages, and growing business profits, which are needed to keep pace with spending levels that automatically rise with inflation, population growth, and other factors. If revenues and spending are automatically growing 4% annually due to factors such as inflation and population growth, then a tax cut that yields a 1% increase in revenue would obviously expand the budget deficit. Tax cutters may support reducing this baseline growth of tax revenues, but they should not deny that the vast majority of tax cuts produce lower tax revenue levels than would have been raised under higher tax rates. 2017 tax cuts provided use, for example, after adjusting for inflation and netting out revenues from Federal Reserve deposits. 2018 to 2024, federal revenues came in 665 billion below the levels that had been projected by the CBO before the 2017 tax cuts. Granted, this decline is far less than the 1 trillion 120 billion revenue loss that had been projected by CBO following the tax cuts for the same period. Surely some of those rebounding revenues resulted from Trump's tariffs, raising roughly 80 billion annually, which they haven't talked about this yet. I wonder if he's gonna bring up. It'd be so funny if he goes on this whole Republicans are in favor of taxing the rich thing, actually, like charade, and then goes, hey, by the way, we should fund taxes for tariffs. Two economic genders. Domestic manufacturing is the only real economic output versus 90% marginal tax rates in the 1950s are real.
Do you know that federal income tax? Wait. You know federal income tax? It was when it was established.
You're talking about the Laffer curve, and I'm telling you, go look at
here's my last claim.
Kansas.
When federal income tax in 1913, when it was established, was only targeted at the people making 100,000 and over. Now most people don't even know that. It's just a base tax. Why? Because the projections that they had of taxing the rich didn't work out like they thought. Because it doesn't work out. There's a ton of loopholes. The rich are smart. Like the rich people are smart. So focus
Our
on
top
producing.
marginal rate still produces
DBCFT would fix
effective
this.
tax rate that is double what it is today. 50% effective tax
does
rate.
not create more wealth.
Yes.
More taxes
Well,
does not
I don't know
create-
what you mean by wealth. I mean,
Well, it's very simple.
I mean, it's obviously, I think it's reductive to say either way, taxes don't create wealth or like taxes, create wealth. Obviously, I don't think this guy even here would reject some level of taxation. It's probably necessary just so we can fund a fucking judicial system that makes sure that property owners don't get fucked, right? Like, like clearly, the there are net revenue gains from funding a court, the court system and funding police and funding the justice system so that when businesses get robbed, we punish the people, who rob them. That probably leads to, a net revenue gain because businesses are actually, comfortable investing in everything. And I'm getting that, yeah. And there's other things, obviously, that can also have positive returns on investment. Like, as Tesco Johnson mentioned, infrastructure. Obviously, there are plenty of roads and bridges that create more economic activity than they cost to build and maintain, right? And those are public goods that likely wouldn't have been funded by an individual if the government hadn't done it because it's a benefit to everyone, but like a private cost, right? It only costs me to build the road, but everyone else gets to use it, for free. Or I mean, you can have toll roads or whatever, but you get my point, okay? A lot of public goods like that. Infrastructure, even research, like government basic R&D spending also tends to like have high returns on investment. There's a lot of spillover benefits to even the research that we do for the fucking military, right? Like fucking Siri on your iPhone right now. That was initially funded by like military research, like just spillover benefits that increase investment everywhere for that as well. Even get this, education, and even, wait for it, welfare spending. Because as it turns out, if you spend money to get children out of poverty, those children tend to have better outcomes later in life, and they pay more in taxes later in life. So it's possible, certainly possible, that even welfare actually makes us wealthier. Wow. It's not a public good if you can exclude people from it. Sure, I mean, you can have... roads are typically low excludability. You can have toll roads, sure, but yeah, it is conceivable that you can have a road that is excludable because you can have a toll road and you make it private or whatever. Sure.
It's production of goods and services.
More
That's what wealth
taxes,
is. That's
more
what creates
taxes,
wealth. Money. People think money is
more
wealth.
taxes
Money buys wealth.
creates
Money
less wealth inequality, and then you have wealth that is shared by more people rather than being in the hands of
natural monopoly. Well, natural
plutocracy,
monopoly makes more sense.
And you
Yeah,
get stuff like an oligarchy.
We've seen
like
what
we have
happens
today.
when you punish your top producers over and over again. They leave. They stop producing. The government, the
Capital flight's a myth.
No, it isn't. You cripple the economy. Guess what happens next?
Wait.
Capital flight, I don't know if I would call it a myth. It's conceivable, like, I think there's a little bit of evidence for it, like, happening in Sweden. I think I have a paper on that, but, like, conservatives fear-monger about it way too much.
When did this happen in the country? When we had a 90%
It happens in
tax
every
rate,
socialist country. This is the socialist playbook. They're like, they come in and they're like, guys.
This is not a socialist country, and I'm not calling for socialism to have a high tax
It is
rates.
more socialist than ever before.
No,
we have
it's
more
not.
social welfare spending.
No.
GDP,
True.
I'll say it again, 38% of government spending, of GDP is government spending. We have more social welfare programs. And look at what happens. But
In the U.S., government spending was estimated to be 38% of GDP. However, welfare accounts for only 7% of government spending. Yeah.
how come we have all these programs and the black community is still living in poverty?
What programs are you talking about that are geared towards the black community?
Poverty is lower than it has been before, by the way, even for the black community. I don't know that for sure, but I would guess that poverty has been going down. It's basically, it's been relatively stable. There was a big dip during COVID because we spent so much in welfare, then it jumped back up. Because we stopped a lot of that welfare spending. But other than that, it's been like long downward trend, and it kind of has leveled off. But 10% fuck me, LMAO. Why are there no poverty bill character conservatives? Yeah, I don't. Well, there was kind of that one guy that was just like, well, if the 20-year-olds don't save for retirement, well, fuck them, not my problem. There was that one guy who kind of did that.
In 2021, we expended. Hold on. In 2021.
What do you mean? What program? How much money is enough? When is it enough? You have the richest country in the world.
We offered $300.
The way you guys think is just insane to me. Like,
let me just finish this.
All right,
in 2021, we extended the child tax credit, which is basically a payment. $300
True.
for social welfare.
Yes.
We cut child poverty in 1 year by 45%. By 45%,
Only goes to
because no
2014.
Republican would join the Democrats, and Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin voted against this provision in Bill Back. I'm talking 2021. From 2021 to 2022, we cut child poverty in this country.
Wait, did they actually go to a Discord call? I didn't keep up the whole thing. I saw that. It looked like the one dude was dodging, kind of. Good for them. They could have let me know, so I could have made content out of it. What the fuck? But okay. Okay.
By
I have to look at what
45%.
you-
Look
and
it
I'm
up.
sure- I feel like when I look at
And
it, I'm
I
right.
guarantee you, I will
I don't-
give you my phone
it's
number. You
half-
call
all
me
right,
if I was wrong.
all right, we'll call.
I'll do it off camera. And you will see that we cut child poverty in a year
Okay.
by 45%.
I'll look at, and I'll look into your claim.
All right, guys.
No, we'll talk after.
Yeah, look at the downward trend, kind of has leveled off. These are relative poverty rates. I think this has, this chart, income supplemental poverty measure.
My next claim is Trump's policies make the rich richer and the working class poorer.
Real.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Hunter Howell. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so do you mind if I ask what policies in specific are you referencing to?
Tax cuts for the rich. I think his idea of tariffs on countries and the way that he's talking about will make people poor. I think all of the work that they're doing in terms of attacking the government agencies will make people poorer because when you get agencies that are supposed to protect us from corporate interests, they will externalize their costs, those corporations, instead of actually assuming themselves. So their profits are made on the backs of all of us, whether it's our health.
That is true, actually, Bob Marley. He's wrong because he underestimated how stupid Trump would be. The rich have gotten, although, I mean, obviously, poor people, like, as a percentage of their income, have, like, less invested in the stock market than the rich people do, most likely. But, like, there are, middle class people who are also fucked.
Very beginning, you talked about taxes. Let's talk about, in his first term, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. There were a couple things in that specific policy that actually do benefit the middle class and the lower class more than the top 1%. So you mentioned taxes, right? But in that, from the IRS data that came out, the middle class and lower class got affected. I think they ended up saving like...
I know what he's citing too. He's correct again, but that's because the effect was masked by temporary tax cuts. Temporary tax deductions for I don't know where I put this stuff. For the middle and lower class. So for example, the child tax credit was the big reason why this IRS data shows Biden overcame 100% recession odds my goat, unironically. Fuck. Where'd I put it? I'm trying to think where the fuck I put it. There's a good article. It's that explains the big reason the IRS data shows that is because of the expansion of the child tax credit. So the child tax credit doubled. But all the other and that for middle income families, so that means a lot, and that masks the effects of the other shit that we did. That were regressive taxes, on corporate income tax probably and other shit. Anyway, this paper investigates how tax changes for income groups affect aggregate economic activity. I construct a measure of who received or paid for tax changes in post-war period using tax return data from NBER's tax sim. Variation in the income distribution across U.S. states and federal tax changes generate variation in regional tax shocks that I exploit to test for heterogeneous effects. I find that the positive relationship between tax cuts and employment growth is largely driven by tax cuts for low-income groups, and that the effect of tax cuts for the top 10% on employment growth is small-based. There's a paper that No Opinion cited once. It's a meta-analysis of 200 corporate tax cuts or whatever, and it's it shows the funnel graph of all the estimates being close to zero for their effect on growth, not employment, but just growth. Here's a Paul Krugman article from 2017, before the tax cuts were passed. Well, the underlying structure of the bill involves raising taxes on the middle class, the bill also includes a number of temporary tax breaks that would at first offset the tax increase. As a result, in the first few years, most middle class families would see a modest tax cut. If you point out the bill hugely favors the wealthy at the expense of ordinary families, Republicans will point out that we'll point to the next few years when class war nature of the plan is obscured by those temporary tax breaks, and claim that whatever the language of the law says, those tax breaks will actually be made permanent by later Congresses. But if you point out the bill is fiscally irresponsible, they'll say it only raised the deficit by $1.5 trillion over the next decade and doesn't raise deficits at all after that, because you see those tax breaks will expire by 2027, so the tax hikes will raise a lot of revenue, which they will probably extend it by now. We'll see, but. The Hamburger meta-analysis? Maybe. I feel like I don't know where the fuck I put it. I think it's at the bottom. Yeah, this one. Yep, this guy. Yep.
Like 3 to 4% on their taxes, on their tax cuts, whereas the billionaires only save 2%. So if we're talking an actual dollar amount, sure, the billionaires save more, but they also make a lot more, right? Also, the billionaires don't really care about an extra grand or two. In that specific policy, the child tax credit doubled from $1,000 per household to $2,000. No billionaire cares about an extra grand in their.
But I think that was a fucking temporary thing. I have to Google that. Tax cuts, Jobs Act, child tax credit. Expires. I think it expired. It says key provisions. When did I don't know if the child tax credit thing expired, or because I know we expanded it, but I don't know. By we, I mean Biden. My very close and personal friend, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Scheduled to expire. Okay, child tax credit. Scheduled to expire 2025. Okay.
Pocket, but I can guarantee you the working class does. So how would you rebuttal that?
I would say, in terms of the taxes themselves, well, the policies that Trump wants to pursue this time are to expand those taxes for wealthy folks. And over time, what starts to happen is you have this wealth disparity, and as the wealth disparity increases, it becomes.
Where's our Connell? Is he here? he probably has shit on this, because I bet he's heard these talking points 500 times. Anyway. We'll see.
Harder for working people essentially to keep up. Things become more expensive. You get inflationary pressures when you have people with more money. We have more and more billionaires than we did 4 years ago.
That's probably not true, because the velocity of money, it gets lower the higher income you are, right? So that's probably wealth inequality probably does not. I don't think it has any significant effect on inflation, but probably, if anything, wealth inequality probably has some deflationary pressure just because the velocity is so low if you're a fucking billionaire.
And a large part of that was obviously COVID, but a large part of it is also money starts to accelerate. Once you, like you say, when a millionaire gets a tax cut for a couple of grand or 60 grand or $500,000 at the end of the day, they end up investing that and it ends up growing because they're not out there working for their money. Their money is just is doing all the work.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think we can agree with you on that when it comes to, billionaires and millionaires and there being a wealth gap in our country, right? I don't think Republicans or liberals would disagree on that, but I think where we will fundamentally disagree is under Trump, right? The stats show that take-home pay was higher for the middle class and the lower class. Inflation was down. They weren't paying as much on taxes.
Oh, hooray! Remember that fucking pandemic we had? God, I will do research into this one day. I don't know if there's any developed country, comparable country that didn't like discover a fucking oil well like fucking Guyana did or whatever, where like take home pay is higher immediately after the pandemic, or like within like the 2 or 3 years following the pandemic, because it was a fucking global pandemic. That's true. What a paper saying income inequality also leads to lower natural interest rates, implying deflationary effect. That makes sense as well. Yeah, but Are we forgetting about that? Are we forgetting about that, buddy? The pandemic we had? The pandemic? From which, by the way, we came out better than it. Like, again, I don't know for sure about take-home pay, but in terms of just GDP, in terms of unemployment, like better than like all these other fucking countries, dude. Are you kidding me?
Was down, but wage growth was actually greater during the Biden administration.
Well,
Well, it might be an accident. I don't know that to be true. It probably depends on what quartile you're looking at.
that's because due to COVID, when a lot of people lost jobs.
No. I mean, I'm talking in percentage comparison between those 4 years and these past 4 years, wage growth grew, not from as a baseline on 2020, but I'm talking as a baseline from 2016.
Interesting. Okay, well then another point that I want to talk on with you real quick is you talked about slashing government agencies, for instance, the Department of Government Efficiency. I'm sure you've heard about that a lot in the news.
That's not
Doge.
a government agency. That's just some committee.
It's actually an executive order was signed to make Doge an official government agency as of less than a week ago. So yeah,
Okay.
it is an official government agency.
I forget no one knows what Doge is. No one knows. We don't know. Who knows? It was maybe illegally created. I don't think has there been a final judgment on that yet. I'm pretty sure there's a court case about it. I don't remember. Where's Ringold? Ringold, knock knock. You here? Hello.
So obviously we're talking about money. We want people to be able to afford a house. We want them to be able to afford to raise a family. Right? As a young man myself.
Go back.
So obviously.
Doge is not a full government agency. Trump reorganized the existing group within the executive office of the president to form Doge, which has a team of members working for agency.
We're talking about money. We want people to be able to afford a house. We want them to be able to afford to raise a family. Right? As a young man myself, I want to be able to grow up in America and be able to afford food.
Is this guy gonna say? He might just say inflation. If this guy says interest rates, I'm gonna shoot myself.
Food one day, right? I mean, I can't now, but continue that. And the way things are going, it's unsustainable for people on the left, people on the right, people in the middle. So we have to come to a common ground on how to fix that. What's unsustainable? The fact that cost of living is increasing year
What
after
does
year.
Doge do to inhibit cost of living?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Doge is going to do, the Department of Government Efficiency, is slash a lot of the federal spending, right? So what happens when
What
the feds...
spending is going to get cut?
So I'm getting there. 1 second, sir. So what's going to happen is the Department of Government Efficiency is going to slash a lot of federal spending. What happens is the government, Republicans, Democrats alike, spend a bunch of money that, excuse my language, but it's nonsense, right? They spend it out here, they spend it out there.
Be more specific. Here or there? Are you talking about cover?
It's just like the idea that Doge is gonna find so much waste, fraud, and abuse that they're gonna be able to cut the deficit enough to have any meaningful inflationary impact. It's just like what do you like? No, like what are you talking about? No, obviously not. The Hamilton Project has a good like chart tracking federal expenditures in real time, and you can compare this year's federal outlays to last year's. The CBO I think also has something, and like, hey, look, it's actually really not that different. it's like a little higher than 2024 right now. Actually, it's really not that different. And 2023, it's just like the 2023 is like slightly lower. Just grows a little bit every year. 2022 is down there. Like, let's go.
For example, because they're not going to cut defense.
Well, for example,
wait a second.
no. Let me finish. $175 billion to Ukraine. First and foremost, that was a bunch of nonsense. So we're gonna.
Bro, there's no way. First of all, I don't even think it was actually that much money, right? I think like 170 or at least 170 billion hasn't actually gotten to Ukraine. But then there's the whole thing of like, oh, you know, it's like old. It's like the value of old military equipment, and then we just like replenish our stockpiles with new weapons anyway. So it's actually not that big of a deal. But also, that like. That's just not inflationary. That's just not. You cannot convince me that like $175 billion of spending on military equipment is significant. It is inflationary. It has a perceivable impact on inflation. There's no fucking shot. Right after that guy ran on keeping the debt break got elected, he immediately announced reforming the debt break due to Trump's situation. Based. All his javelins right in Zelensky's pockets are real. I also like, I mean, obviously I don't think it's a bunch of nonsense, but
talk about that, but we also have a bunch of other things in the Defense Department, as well as a bunch of DEI departments.
Well, they're not touching. First of all, there are no DEI departments.
That's
And
completely
second,
false.
Listen, defense spending.
Wrong.
I don't know if there's a I don't know if there is a DEI department.
Defense spending is not going to be touched by Doge.
Wrong.
And when you talk about the government, what's the biggest expenditure government has?
Our military and Social Security are our top two.
And Medicare and Medicaid, right? Now, they're not going to touch the military. Are they going to cut Social Security?
You're asking me like I'm part of
They're gonna get all the dead people off it, don't you know?
Doge.
No. Well, you're telling me that Doge is going to help everybody here, and I'm telling you.
It's so funny too. The fucking like the dead people in Social Security thing that turned out not to be true. It's so funny that like, if you, like for half these things, I'm pretty sure it was either a report from the Social Security Administration or a report from the Government Accountability Office. Because guess what? We already have something that holds the government accountable for things. Tries to reduce waste. People have thought of that before Elon Musk, surprisingly. Has a report detailing like, hey, there are a bunch of dead people on the Social Security rolls or whatever, or a bunch of like old people, like 90% of them don't get Social Security payments. So guess what? It's this crazy thing called a cost benefit analysis. We could get rid of all these old people on the Social Security Administration rolls, but to do so, to refine the data set, would cost like more, you know, would cost like $6 million or something, which is like way more than we're giving out in benefits to these may or may not be dead people. We don't know. Like, people have thought about this. It's not an easy decision. It's not like easy to reduce waste. It's like you have to do these cost benefit analyses. And like, Doge is just so annoying. Anyway.
If they cut Social Security, everybody in here is going to get hit. Because these folks are going to have to pay for their parents because Social Security keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. So tell me what they're going to cut that's going to make it easier for Americans.
I already did.
What?
I told you the $175 billion that we've sent to Ukraine. We're no longer going to.
So he's going to.
Yes, so Donald Trump has signed an executive order.
You've been voted out by the majority.
I think the executive order that he signed to pause all foreign aid, I think that exempted Ukraine. I think it was also blocked by a judge. And then, I mean, he just flip-flopped again. He flip-flopped like 3 times. He was like, I'm pausing all aid after that meeting. And then he unpaused all aid either today or yesterday. Or maybe the day before yesterday. The days all blend together, okay? I don't know. Because Ukraine might be willing to sign a minerals deal, and I think they said they might agree to a 30-day ceasefire or something. But Russia, we don't know if they're going to agree to the 30-day ceasefire. It'd be so. God, it's going to be so annoying if Russia does not agree to whatever 30-day ceasefire Trump sets up and Ukraine agrees to or whatever. Twitter better be filled with liberals making the same memes that conservatives made about like Zelensky not accepting peace or whatever. It better be filled to the fucking brim. God. It's going to be so fucking annoying when no Republican cares that like Putin is not accepting a ceasefire, but whatever.
Okay, so why did we see a higher increase in the top 1% paying as part of federal income revenue under TCJA?
Why did we see a higher
I don't hold on.
Increase in the top 1% paying as part of federal income revenue. Okay, so why did we see a higher increase in the top 1% paying as part of federal income revenue under TCJA?
A higher increase in the top 1% paying? I actually don't know what this guy's trying to say. I think what he's trying to say is just being retarded and saying like the net amount of money that the net 1% paid grew, you know, under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, right? They paid $1,000 one year, paid $1,001 the next year. Again, not compared to the counterfactual of this, you hadn't done the tax cut. Because if you do a 1% tax, like that thing gave, if their incomes grow by 4% every year and you do like a 1% tax cut or whatever, like that tax cut, they'll still end up paying more the next year, but they would have paid more if you just hadn't done a tax cut. Like,
TCJA.
Why did we see a higher increase in the...
So under TCJA, it was passed 2017, it was effective 2018. 2018 and onward, we actually saw the top 1% pay more. They had more of the federal income tax burden. They paid 45% as opposed to Obama. During Obama's tax plan, they only paid about 40 to 42% of the
Because
federal
they got
income
more money.
Right, okay, so they got more money.
They got richer.
But why are they paying? So And why did they get richer? So this goes on inflation that.
I mean, that's my point, is the rich are getting richer.
Right, but you mentioned, why would you say that they're getting richer? But you mentioned inflation? Or,
No. Is the rich are getting
Why
richer.
would you say they're
right,
getting
but
richer?
you
During the Obama administration, the share of federal income tax paid by the top 1% ranged from 35 to 39%. During the first Trump administration, the range paid by the top 1% ranged from 39% to nearly 46%. Source.
So why would you say that they're getting richer? But you mentioned inflation? Or,
No, they're not. Well, I mean, I think that.
Why does this guy keep wanting to
inflation,
bring up
to the extent that there was money that wasn't a function of like logistics and other problems that we had during COVID. Yeah, the rich got richer. Not all inflation is a function of monetary inflation.
That's true, but when we look at COVID and we can see that they increased the money supply by 40%, they added $6 trillion, and you have a Federal Reserve System that's doing quantitative easing and pumping stimulus into the economy.
True.
You can attribute that to left-wing policy. The entire Federal Reserve System is Keynesian economics. Those are very...
No, I wouldn't. No, I won't accept that. No, no. Unless left wing just means anything left of, like, fucking Austrian economy. I don't think. No. I'm not gonna accept it. No, plenty of monetarists also want a Federal Reserve. Okay, they want a central bank. Yeah. When was the Fed founded? When was the general theory? Yeah, straight. Like, yeah, straight. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, like what? Like literally, Fed was founded in 1913. General theory was written like 20 years after that. What are you talking about, dog?
Very left-wing.
Well, I can tell you this: inflation went up in Europe.
Federal Reserve as in flows between monetarism and Keynesian economics. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
in Western European countries, the same.
why does it disappear
Well, I
so
can tell you
fast?
this: inflation went up in Europe,
Monetarists believe in controlling the supply of money that flows into the economy while allowing the rest of the market to fix itself. Sure, Keynesianism believe that Keynesian economists, Jesus, believe that a troubled economy continues in a downward spiral unless intervention drives consumers to buy more goods. Sure, whatever. Sure, good enough. Paradigm. Yeah, sure. Sure. Fine, Jubilee.
in Western European countries, the same
that
rates
had
that
the
it
stimulus.
did.
That had stimulus.
No, they didn't have the same level of stimulus
They
that we
did.
did. No, they did.
They absolutely did.
They
You can look at Japan. Yeah, I hear this topic all the time. They say, oh, inflation was global. Not true. China never went above 3% inflation during all of COVID, and they were.
We believe the Chinese numbers now. I mean, I don't know about China. Usually we compare ourselves to other developed countries, like other OECD rich Western nations, right? Which for the most part we did do, or we brought, I think our inflation peaked higher than them, but it did, it did go down faster than other countries. This is a good chart that has, but yeah, this is excessive government spending over gross public debt times the duration versus change in core inflation. Because this adjusts for, there's that one chart that I think that MMT used in like a Washington Post article that was like, oh, you know, countries with greater stimulus didn't actually see that much more inflation. But that's not, but this just adjusted for the existing outstanding debt that countries had and the existing deficit spending they were doing. Yeah. Trying to find, I don't know if I have a chart. Whatever. You have my point.
Actually, they were under deflationary pressures. Japan, which is part of the G7, was also never had deflationary pressures.
Well, Japan has, Japan has had deflationary pressures issues for like decades now. Yeah.
Never had inflation increase. The only countries that had
I'm talking in Western Europe, you could see inflation. Well, you could England, Germany, Italy. They didn't stimulate as much as we did. It wasn't monetary inflation. If you look at the cost of goods.
In a study of advanced economies, the inflation rate at least doubled from early 2020 to 2022 in 37 of 44 countries. In 16 countries, the inflation rate quadrupled. Okay, well, that's not really useful.
Logistics got screwed up because of COVID.
So let's look at the reason. All international trade, because we're the world reserve currency, is done in U.S. dollars. Because we experience it, domestic inflation was high.
So you're saying our inflation
yes,
cost? China's annual inflation rate has been below 3%. Japan suffered from economic stagnation, resulting in deflation. It's often called Japan's like Japan fucking has this deflation shit all the time. I don't know why we're using this shit.
Where the world reserve currency is done in U.S. dollars. Because we experienced it, domestic inflation was high.
So you're saying our inflation?
Yes.
I don't think this is really true.
It affects
higher inflation in Europe.
absolutely because
That's not what economists.
I don't think there's any.
Well,
I don't think there's much evidence for that. It doesn't seem like it's true.
you can look at the facts. International trade is we have dollar-denominated international trade. All international trade is that's why we're the world reserve currency.
Also, that's the main role of the dollar in like international trade, because we're the reserve currency. It just means that like if you're in fucking Zimbabwe's not a good example, because their currency is fucked, and I think they peg their currency to US dollar. If you're in fucking I keep wanting to say countries that like experienced hyperinflation. If you're in fucking Chad, I don't know what currency Chad uses. If you're in fucking Chad in Africa and you want to buy something from fucking Italy, instead of buying euros with your currency, you buy dollars and then you use those dollars to buy euros, right? Like we're just an intermediary currency because it's kind of easier to make it work that way because it's hard to match. A lot of times it's hard to match. It's hard for intermediaries to match transactions directly between people who want, to swap currencies. That's the role of the dollar as a reserve currency, and also I think a lot of central banks hold it in their reserves in case shit happens with their currency, so they can easily like peg their currency to the dollar or whatever. I think those are like from my understanding, those are the two main roles. I don't think I'm not convinced that our inflation somehow caused the inflation in all the other countries. But being the world reserve currency is why the U.S. can spend as much as it wants, and why BRICS is pays anti-MP. Yeah, all the senior rich.
You guys claim that the U.S. recovered faster than anybody else.
800 billion in senior
It's because we
rich.
have a privilege of being the world reserve currency, and we export our inflation. Like the strength.
We export our inflation.
Let me explain that the U.S. dollar is the most safe asset in the world. In times of great crisis and great volatility, like COVID crisis.
Econo boy. I just don't think this is true. I don't understand the mechanism for it.
Everybody turns to the dollar. Many currencies are tied to the dollar. So it's like when you...
The euro's not tied to the dollar.
The euro's not, but international trade. So if the euro actually crashed against the dollar during COVID. The euro used to be above the dollar.
I'm unclear what your point is.
My point is that the inflation is caused by left-wing policies.
So inflation was caused by, you're saying...
supply shock and pumping trillions of dollars.
Well, first of all, you understand...
Also, I wouldn't deny that obviously a lot of the inflation was caused by, demand side evil Keynesian policies or whatever. But also, maybe we also prevented like a major, even worse economic downturn because of that. Maybe, real personal consumption expenditures or whatever wouldn't have continued on like exactly their pre-COVID trend if we hadn't fucking used all that stimulus money. Maybe consumption would be down. Maybe investment would also be down a lot. I'm just saying. Maybe unemployment would have been fucking 6% right now. That might be a little high, but if we hadn't done all that fucking stimulus, okay, like.
And that the Federal Reserve is not part of Biden didn't have control of the
better than
Federal
us,
Reserve.
know it.
The entire
We'll come
Federal
back
Reserve
to
system
PG.
is left-wing in economic theory. That's the Keynesian economics. It's interventionist economics. So
you're saying that
the more you
quantitative
stimulate,
easing,
the more you stimulate. Yeah.
Why didn't we get it through QE?
We do get it through
Why
QE.
didn't we get inflation during the Obama years?
We did get inflation.
We didn't get
the wealth gap that you guys.
We did not get that much inflation. No, QE just did not. It's just not true. We just did not get. We did not get that much inflation during Obama. I think CPI might have peaked at like maybe 4%. Actually, we'll look at PCE, and I think it's like 4% for CPI, and it's probably lower for PCE. Percent change from a year ago. It was like It was 5% CPI in August 2008. We actually saw deflation in 2009. It's like 2%, 3%, almost 4%. Welcome back, History. Have we gotten to the woman that wants no rights yet? Yeah, the like insane Christian nationalist girl. Yeah, she spoke once. That was interesting. PCE percent change from a year ago. 4%, 3%, and then deflation 2009. I don't even know what's the first round of QE in 2009. It might have been. Or no, it would have to have been in 2008, I think. November 2008, yeah. Which is just not actually, you know, from November to December, we saw, you know, from November all the way up until August or October, there was fucking almost for a full year there was deflation after QE. No, QE was not the main driver of inflation. Again, QE, it's just a way to manipulate long-term interest rates. Watch the fucking interviews with Ben Bernanke, okay? It's not that hard, okay? Ben Bernanke went on fucking 60 Minutes and said, he kind of said this in 60 Minutes, but QE in 2008 was not really meant. Destiny agreed with your takes. What takes? I've already been attacked for being a Destiny clone today. I don't know if I need him to agree. Ben Bernanke literally is like, hey, by the way, QE was not meant to add to the money supply. He literally, in an interview in 2022, he said, we studied what they did in Japan, but ours was different because in Japan, they tried to add to the money supply. We weren't trying to add to the money supply. We were just trying to manipulate long-term interest rates, okay? Like, QE does, on paper, add to the money supply. It depends. Well, it depends. Because the way we define M2, it shifts assets between, you know, financial assets and bank reserves, and bank reserves are counted in M2, and those financial assets aren't counted in M2. So you reduce financial assets, but you increase bank reserves. Bank reserves are counted in M2, and financial assets aren't. So you do increase M2, but also you are taking away financial assets. Those financial assets just go on the Fed's balance sheet and go to the fucking void. Okay, like that's not really inflationary. And I don't count asset price inflation. That's not real.
We absolutely did.
What numbers of inflation did we get during the Obama years that were outside of like the 2% sort of Fed target?
I don't think it was as high as COVID. COVID hit us.
No, it wasn't even remotely close.
It was like maybe 4%. But what is interesting, that the money supply didn't increase in the 2008 crisis, but massively increased during the COVID days. Well, part of it increasing during the COVID days was that they just redefined what M2 was, right? They just redefined I think, all the M's. Didn't it increase in 2008? I guess it didn't increase that much. But they weren't even fucking trying to. Fuck. What's the name of this interview? Ben Bernanke 2022 QE interview. Fuck. Is it this? I don't think it's that. I think it's this.
Like the work I did with Reinhardt and Sack, we tried to look at not previous policy episodes, but other kinds of information that might be useful. For example, I think it was 2001, the U.S. government stopped issuing a 30-year Treasury bond. And so there was the lessons were somewhat limited for us. Then, of course, we did look at the Japanese case, but that, even though it was called quantitative easing, which is the term that was applied to our asset purchases, it was a different type of approach. Their goal was to increase the money supply by adding to bank reserves. It was a different strategy. They mostly bought shorter-term securities, not long-term securities, as the Fed would ultimately do. Then finally,
They did, by the way. There's a Brookings piece on this. Brookings QE 2008 versus COVID. The Fed bought shorter term securities in.
And it turned out to not be transitory. And then one major thing happened in 2022. I think we all know what that was. That was the war in Ukraine. And I believe, and I can explain, that the war in Ukraine was explicitly caused by Joe Biden's bad foreign policy, and that.
Kill me. That was the big that was the number one inflationary thing, was the war in Ukraine for sure. But also the fucking team transitory people. First of all, I don't know. I'd have to look back and see what Jenny else said. It obviously there was no good way to know in 2022 how transitory inflation would be, and as it turns out, quite a bit of it was kind of transitory. I mean, we are back to basically average inflation. It's above our 2% target, but that's an arbitrary target that we set in 2012. We're back to basically the historical average of inflation, and unemployment barely went up. We're still at 4% unemployment. I think we're at 4.1% now because Trump's America. But I think team transitory was 80% right. They're 80% right.
Shot inflation up from, there was already pretty bad inflation in early 2022 and late 2021, but it shot it up from the low kind of margins in 3 or 4% all the way to 9% in 2022 of July at the peak.
Inflation is now down around 2%, around where
in between 2.5
yeah,
and 6,
where they're looking to get it, and we have really close to record unemployment that we've had over the past 4 years. But how does this have to do with Trump's policies not making the richer richer and the rest of us poor?
Okay, so what I was just explaining with I was going to get into oil prices. So oil prices skyrocketed in 2022 because in 2021, when Biden got into office, he shut down our Keystone pipeline, shut down all new oil and gas leases in America. Then he took the sanctions.
I don't know if that
producing
second
right
part
now
is
more
true.
oil in this country than we ever have in the history of any country everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
On top of the fact that Biden is credited by oil traders, and this isn't something that I am terribly.
Let a reminder, work the Keystone XL pipeline, which, by the way, just to be clear, Trump is literally fucking saying now, we don't need Canadian oil. Are you fucking kidding me? Literally, if these people, if Trump said, I'm gonna cancel the Keystone XL pipeline because I don't fucking want Canadian oil, and all it's gonna do is increase our trade deficit with Canada, these people will be fucking cheering it on, dude. Actually kill me. Trump is fucking tariffing Canadian oil. Are you kidding me, bro? Anyway, regardless, okay. Regardless of that, he also implemented a 60-day suspension of leasing and drilling permits for oil and gas at federal property. Did he do, after those 60 days? He did quite a bit of oil drilling. He actually approved more drilling than Trump approved. So,
of any country everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
On top of the fact that Biden is credited by oil traders, and this isn't something that I am terribly excited
Trust the
about.
fourth long-term business for
Apparently,
Canada to register as Trump
what
ramps
Biden
up
did
trading.
during the past 4 years is he used the strategic oil reserve to drive down oil prices, and essentially broke and it's filled back up, and he filled it back up, and he broke.
If oil prices are high, if you're complaining about oil prices being high, then we probably should be fucking draining the oil reserves, and then guess what? Filling them back up when we start producing more oil than any country in history ever is producing.
He broke the negotiating power and the price setting power by oil countries across the world. Really? Oil traders hail him for doing this, and frankly, I don't think it's that impressive. But let's talk about what Trump's policies are.
We only have a little bit of time, but I was getting to that. So oil prices, in 2021, Biden took all the sanctions off of the pipeline in Russia, and then the pipeline in Russia ran straight through Ukraine originally, and he knew that if he invaded Ukraine would destroy the pipeline, and his economic success would be destroyed in Russia. And then when the sanctions,
Biden or
Putin knew that would occur in Russia if the sanctions were taken off of that pipeline. And Biden took all the sanctions off of Nord Stream 2 in Russia, the second week he was in office. And then a year later, Putin invades Ukraine. Sanctions happen all over the world, and inflation rises within 6 months all the way up to 9%. Trump is going to do great things with oil and let us drill, and what that actually does for the economy.
Like I say, we are producing more oil in this country.
So my AP Human Geo teacher said that Canada would lose the tariff war because America has a better economy. I mean, I hate this meme, but like it is kind of true. Like no one wins a trade war. Like what does winning in a trade war mean? Like do you like if we had which we basically are in a trade war with Canada. If Canada tariffs the U.S. as much as it can, and the U.S. tariffs Canada as much as it can, it's true. Like in terms of like, you know, who is hurt more? Like, yeah, Canada is probably going to be hurt more than fucking the U.S. is going to be hurt aggregately because we do have a stronger economy. But it's like we are still worse off. We're still worse off, and for what? To stop 42 pounds of fentanyl? Maybe stop. We don't even know. Maybe stop 42 pounds of fentanyl coming over the border. Really? Like, it's like I'm gonna make the lives of everyone in America worse because it'll make the lives of everyone in Canada, one of our allies, even more worser. Like, okay, dog. Okay, I guess.
Than any country in the history of the world.
What executive order did Biden just sign to have to do with offshore drilling in the East Coast?
He stopped it.
Yeah. Really dumb idea. We're about to begin a new.
So you want to go beyond even the record-breaking thing?
Yes, I
Are
want to
you
become
aware
energy
of
independent,
climate?
and that lowers inflation.
We are energy independent.
We're going to sell
makes
this
the
oil.
economy better.
We don't use the oil. We sell it.
Yeah,
We sell
getting
it.
money in the
We
pockets of
sell
American
it.
citizens.
We sell it. Well, how is that oil getting to the pocket of American citizens?
Because when you lower the prices of oil, that lowers the prices of
No,
all
I
products.
understand that the
You're
inflationary
transport
prices effect of energy. But the fact of the matter is, they're just going to sell it.
Yeah,
they're
we're
not
gonna
going to
be-
sell it.
yeah, so we're
you
gonna
want to produce even more oil than we are now.
Yes.
And you don't think climate change is going to impact? You don't believe in climate change?
Well, that's a whole nother discussion, but no.
Well, I mean, it's sort of the same discussion.
Yeah, no, I believe that climate change is, well, there's obviously an element of climate change that is partially true, but lowering or
Which part of it?
raising the man-made raising temperatures by 1 to 2 degrees Celsius in the next 150 years isn't necessarily a detriment to society. Human beings
You don't think so?
No, human beings are very good at innovation, and we can build seawalls, and we can create carbon
What kind of
technology.
seawall are you going to build for Miami? What are you going to do about like when we don't? When we get?
I'm talking about the economy right now, which if we get back on topic.
All right, guys. Sorry, time's up. I'll let
Yeah,
you
no
go
problem.
longer.
Wow.
I'm good. Did you watch the Sam Seder thing yet?
Yeah, I'm on the last little bit of it, but yeah.
Okay.
What do you say to people
what do you
like
think
that?
so far?
It's wild. These people are insane. What do you think of the? I've heard a few people say this, and like it seems really dumb to me because I don't see a mechanism. When people say like, "Oh, inflation was high in other countries because we're the world reserve currency and we exported our inflation," like,
I don't know what that means. What does it mean to export our inflation?
yeah, like literally, I don't. Yeah.
Like, am I going to see a correlation between inflation between different countries? Probably, but that's because probably the world is very interconnected. I don't know what it means that we exported our inflation. Okay, look, confirmed. I confirmed the hypothesis. Okay, look. Here we go. Let me send you the screenshot. See how... Tell me this is not causal.
Whoa.
It happened in the United States first. That means they exported it.
This is true.
I want to add other countries. I wonder why it happened in the United States first. Probably because maybe the United States had a faster response. I don't know. Like, plausibly, government spending is part of it. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know why. But yeah, exporting inflation is retarded. No economist says that, so.
I don't know. I'm reading it on what is money.
I was enjoying watching the debate. I couldn't. Look, I like Sam, but it's like I don't have enough billionaires who don't exist in me to listen to this.
He only said that like one time, bro. It's fine. It's fine.
It was a whole topic, no?
Okay. He talked about like the Trump tax cuts for the rich or whatever. Like I think that was the thing. It was like Trump is going to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. So they talked about when they talked about billionaires.
Yeah. I also don't have enough. Oh, we had the highest marginal tax rate, therefore it's causal. in math. I don't have enough of that.
We had this 91% tax rate that literally 400 people paid, bro. So if you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon 420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.